Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this roundtable where we discuss the secret recipe of a psychologically safe workplace, co-created by the ETHR World and Deloitte. I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead, ETHR World, and your host for this session. Before I get in the speakers and introduce them to you, I will take a minute or two to set the context of today's session. As the current social, political, and economic climate continues to trigger change, uncertainty has become the backdrop of the new normal, making psychological safety in the workplace a critical tool to protect employees inside and outside of the work. With the evolving definition of the new normal, leaders are relooking at ways to engage and display genuine care at the workplace, expanding boundaries to foster a greater sense of equality, acceptance, and belongingness. Definitely, data and digital tools amplify the collective voice of employees, guiding leaders to create policies and processes meeting every employee's emotional, physical, and health needs. Definitely, insurance has also arguably emerged as a razor-sharp tool to design a psychologically safe environment in the present era. In this session, the panel will help us underline the productive trends promoting a psychologically safe climate in the physical and virtual workplaces. We will learn the proactive steps they are taking to help improve the personal and professional lives of the workforce, thus improving retention and professional excellence. Please join me in welcoming the panel. We've got today with us Amit Sharma, CHRO Volvo Group India, Arijit Pal Chaudhary, Executive Director, Head HR and Head of Corporate Communication, Nomura Services India, Deepti Agarwal, Director, Deloitte Consulting, Priyank Saxena, Senior VP and Health ACO. Viewers, I'd like to welcome you also to this session this morning. We want to make the session very, very interactive for you. So please use the Q&A tab on your screen to share the questions. The panel will be taking your questions right from the start of the session. So let your thinking caps and let your curiosity soar as you get great insights from this panel this morning. Let's start with a very contextual question. What are the building blocks of a psychologically safe workplace that takes care of an employee's emotional, physical health, all kinds of needs? Let's have Deepti come in first and tell us what she thinks about psychological safety at the workplace.
Thank you, Pooja, and good morning, everyone. First of all, compliments to ETHR for organizing this panel. I think it's a very, very relevant topic, especially given the pandemic that we've just gone through. So congratulations on holding this session. To begin with, and I've been thinking about it, right? Psychological safety, diversity, inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion. These have all been words which have been sort of the buzzwords, right, in the past few years. But what does all this boil down to, right, if you think about it? To me, it is very simple, right? It is about each and every person at work feeling comfortable to be themselves, feeling empowered to express an idea, contribute without any fear, right, of any negative consequence to themselves, to their careers. So it's just about being courageous at workplace, right? Being vulnerable, and that's a two-way street, right? It's important for us as leaders in the organization to be vulnerable in front of everyone, in front of our team members, for them to feel the same. So to me, that's really the basis about this whole psychological safety that we talk about. In terms of building blocks, I mean, and you spoke about emotional, financial, health needs, and these are all extremely important, right? I mean, intuitively, these are all the building blocks. But if you just peel the layer a little bit more, right? To me, the most important foundation of this is trust. The fact that you're able to extend trust and earn trust of the people that you work with, right? Spending that time to get to know your team, to understand their background, to understand what is unique to them, inviting those unique perspectives. And that, in a way, lends to everything else, right? To courage, to build that connect human to human. We all speak about empathy, right? But the starting point of it is to really build that trust. So to me, that's what a psychologically safe workplace means, Pooja, in very, very simple terms.
Deepti, bang on, I would say, trust is the crux here. And, very recently I had a leader in one of my sessions, and she said, that was more on diversity and equality. And she said that, vulnerability is inside all of us. And when leaders expose their vulnerability, they talk about it openly. It is like walk the talk, and it helps their teams to really open up, and it really opens a lot of doors in a workplace. So, I mean, that's a really great point to start this session this morning. Thank you for sharing that. We have Priyank here, who comes from the healthcare delivery side, and I call him an evangelist of, healthcare. So I'd like to get him and ask him, what would he say as the building blocks of a psychologically safe work environment?
Thank you, Pooja, and good morning to everyone. I think to add on to the 4 pillars that you have already, enlisted: emotional, health, financial, physical. Undoubtedly, these are very, very 4 important pillars about this entire psychologically safe workplace, building blocks. I will give you a little more perspective to, what we see as insurers in terms of the variety and the range of coverages, and I would say the benefits that leaders are today looking up to us. Okay, so as insurers, we are privy to certain benefits that leaders would actually ask about us for the, which is more towards all these parameters, mental well-being programs, all sort of in EAP are now looked upon as a benefit part. Health, definitely, health insurance being the most important part for it, which is now coupled up with a lot of wellness, preventive care programs. All these are very common asks that are coming to us. In a lot of corporates, there are physical, how they're taking up the physical component into the speed, arranging some, corporate challenges, some healthy habits, some coaching, some, fitness and gym sort of an association. From the financial sides, there are a lot of requests that nowadays we are seeing. Apart from the health sessions, people are actually asking us that, could you help us to have some advisory around, let's say, tax planning, or investments, life insurance. So these are typical asks that I'm seeing from, I think, corporates of all employee segment. I think as low as at times 100, 150 employee to 1,000, 10,000 employees also are actually looking forward to it. Now, so ORM's requests are now woven around these aspects. Many of them already have some part of it built in them, and few are definitely upgrading their programs, each and every year that they are renewing their policy. Now at ECHO, what we are doing is, we are also giving solutions around, we are beyond health insurance, because health insurance, that's the core. But since health insurance is the, I would say, beyond this, all these parameters are now being included. So whether you talk about all the assistance-related programs, all these preventive healthcare solutions. So there are network process that we have to build right now, to ensure that all these things are taken care of. Whether it is a detailed wellness calendar through the mobile application, apart from giving them a lot of claim-related convenience, there are engagement programs like Step Challenge, rewarding people for completing some daily or weekly goals, some easy access to top doctors, consultants, specialists, some diagnostic related features. all this is something which is a very, very common ask. And what I'm trying to tell you is that, I think there is an emergence of or shift in terms of the coverage beyond health insurance. And that's the reason I'm saying this is beyond just my own organization's experience, but the experience that today, I am seeing from a lot of corporates across different geographies and industries.
Thank you, Priyank, for sharing that. You have also answered one of the audience question that came from Ravi, and he's asked, how do you gauge how mature an organization is in, having a psychological safe workplace? So kind of best practices you've shared about the wellness calendar and those, fitness goals for employees that are trackable are some of those great examples. Ravi, I hope that answers your question. And we will also be taking, other perspective that will also help you get some answers. And, Venus has asked a very interesting question that we expect leaders to be strong. There's a stereotype that, if you're strong, that means you're a leader, that I think it comes from Hitler or, those kind of days. But, I would want one comment from you that how that has changed today. And strength doesn't really mean, the old kind of strength today. Being empathetic and being soft and being understanding are what leaders are supposed to be. So would anybody like to make one point here for Venus's question?
I'm saying that, yeah, I think strength is important, but right now it's more about a mental strength than a physical strength. So you have to be mentally very strong and stable, and as DP just said, have that trust factor inbuilt into the entire ecosystem. I think that's what today is important. What do you, DP?
Yeah, Deepti. Yeah, thanks.
So
Yeah.
completely echo that, Priyank. I think there is enough talk around empathetic leadership these days, right? Authentic and empathetic leadership is something which is proven to be successful many times, right? I mean, we've all gone through this pandemic, right? All of us went through phases of weakness, phases where we weren't ourselves, right? So I think just showing that part is extremely important, and that will only make you more approachable to the employees. And also, everything that we talk about a psychologically successful place, right, leads to innovation, leads to business results. But how do you get that? If people will relate to you, if they'll talk to you, then they'll put in that extra effort to work with you, right? So I think gone are the days where you need to come across as a Hitler, that strong person who is unaffected by any circumstance. Just be authentic, be empathetic. And I think that's what the need of the hour is.
True. So moving on, what are the first few steps that any organization needs to take to develop a psychological safe workplace? This could be relevant for some of these new age companies, which are setting today startups who are starting afresh. Or it could also be for old organizations who are relooking at their culture. So what would be those first few steps one should take? Amit, your thoughts?
Sure. Thanks, Pooja. The first and foremost thing, according to me, is to just accept that now we are in a different works environment, which is hybrid and which is going to be fundamentally different from the entire concept of everybody in office. I think that's the first step we need to, acknowledge, because you can't say that it's the same. A hybrid workplace as well as the current workplace or the earlier workplace are the same. The answer is no. So once you acknowledge that, then you start understanding the nuances which comes along with that in terms of creating a psychological workspace, because the playbook in some ways same, but in some ways also very different, because of the fact that you are not really seeing people in front of you every day. You are not really interacting with the person face to face, and the entire interaction is this 14-15 inch screen, and to you each person in a hybrid zone is it's a rectangle and on which a picture is coming in, and that's how you are primarily interacting most of the time in a hybrid workplace. So first of all, the key important piece is that acknowledge that things are different now, and to create a psychological workplace we need to do things differently than it used to be earlier. The second important piece is how do we really build connect with people. you can't create a psychological safety if I don't have a connect with the other person. And for that, one needs to really invest in building that social capital. Without investing in building a social capital with the team, ensure saying that somebody will be in a psychological safe workplace, or I should feel safe, it will just not happen. Safety or psychological safety comes with a lot of trust, comes with a lot of connection. I really need to trust you on what you are doing, on what you are saying, and also the trust that I will be heard, I will not be ridiculed, I will be given an equal ear as everybody else. My views equally matter. I think that element of connect and trust is very important. And if till the time you're not able to create that connect through the social capital, through the social engagement, things will not work. One has to really earn or build a psychological safe work. It is not that as a manager I come and say, hey, we have a psychological safe place. Please feel free to say what you want to say, and expect that everybody will feel safe. It will just not work like that. The third piece is around inclusion. Now, how much are we including people in terms of diverse perspectives? Am I only listening to the perspectives which resonate with my thought processes, or I'm equally open to perspectives which are fundamentally and radically different from my perspective? If I'm able to listen to that and listen with empathy, listen with intent, and not just hear but listen, and I'm very consciously making a difference between these two words of hearing and listening that too with intent, that makes a fundamental difference here in creating in building that foundation around psychological safety. Otherwise it will not really work. The final piece, and then I think somebody talked about it earlier, Deepti talked about it, is about being vulnerable. Now, as a manager, now you need to role model being vulnerable, because in a psychological safe workplace, everybody feels comfortable sharing their vulnerabilities with the team, and they trust that team to be also open and understand them. Now, for that, the manager has to role model himself or herself. Without that, it will not work. I remember in one of the organizations where we worked, one of the ways to create psychological safety was this entire process of check-ins. So every meeting used to start with check-ins, and used to have 3 questions we used to ask. We used to put on the table, and the leader had to start by himself or herself as the first one to answer. First one was, how are you feeling at this point of time? Second is, is there something bothering you from being fully present in the meeting today? And the third was, which was more a question on the other side, was more about, what do you really want out of this meeting? But the second point, the first and second question, how are you feeling, and is something bothering? And at that point of time, if as a leader I'm saying, hey, I have my son who's doing his class 10th examinations today, sitting on the board, I'm a bit distracted, because of that. I'm wondering how his exams would go. Or if somebody in my family is not well, or somebody is traveling, I'm concerned about their the travel safety. Just sharing those points on the table show that you are as human as anybody else, and you can talk about your feeling, you talk about your concerns with everybody, and you're also willing to listen to those. And if something is bothering us, or if something is impacting us at that point of time, it's okay to voice it out, and we all understand where you're coming in from. I think these are the critical steps, in my view, as the basic foundation if you really want to create a psychologically safe workplace, and more so in this hybrid environment where you are not really seeing people much on a daily basis.
Thank you, Amit, for sharing those. And those are absolutely valuable points, and they are the essential pillars when you talk about trust, inclusion, you talk about listening and not just hearing, and you talk about vulnerability that leaders can show. The real question here is that how do we train our managers to live by these, framework policies that are created as an organizational culture? Because end of the day, you don't leave an organization, you leave toxic bosses. So, when you talk from the top to the bottom line, there are so many project managers, so many, group leaders. How do you train those group leaders? Do organizations really have a system in place where leaders are trained for these, not on an impact that you don't directly make to business, because this is the subtle impact which you make. Arijit, your thoughts, and I just want to get you into this conversation right now. Sorry for taking so long.
No, that's fine. And thank you very much, Pooja, and thank you, Amit and Deepti, for sharing your thoughts. And Priyank, I think you guys have answered everything really, so hardly left anything for me. Broadly speaking, I think for me, one of the words that come to my mind again and again is that create a sense of belongingness for the employees. If the employees have to come to your office and search for their identity, then they will never be able to recognize themselves or identify themselves with the bigger picture of the organization. So that sense of belongingness is probably a last word of what Deepti and Amit said. I want to add that word, which is very critical. And that's where the managers, play a very strong role, because they are the ones who have the maximum amount of information of the floor, and they know their employees the best, and they feed to their policymakers. Second is that we at times tend to be a little rigid on change. Your actions should be very open to change. So if there's what we have been doing for many years together does not need to be done going ahead. You are open to change. So this feeling to the employees is very critical. Whatever you do, ask the employees, ask your team what they want, rather than shoving something into their head from the top that this is what the senior management decided and you have to follow it. That doesn't work. And that may work for a bunch of people, but for the rest of the people, doesn't work. Ask the employees what, big problems, for big problems, you can get solutions from the employees directly by asking them questions. What would you do in this situation? They will give you great ideas. So, explore that zone, do surveys, figure out, what would help them in staying in the organization. Broadly speaking, I think, employees are very smart. So they focus less on the crisis, how the crisis unfolded, rather, how the organization responded to it. So they watch your actions, and the organization response is actually from the manager's side. And, a lot of research has gone into this for the last 2 years. And so, and, some of the, I think 3 big things that has come up, and which is very essential for managers to understand, is that they need to re-engineer the expectations of employees, re-establishment of commitment, and rebuild capacity, to keep the ball running. And at the end of the day, employees are looking forward to how does it affect me, whatever you do, and what is in it for me. So you have to keep them in the center of everything and do this. So what I mean by re-engineering the expectations is, you cannot stick to contractual relationships anymore, or contractual relationships doesn't drive things 100%. It's more personal. There'll be a lot of idiosyncratic deals. And I love this word ideals, because this creates that personalized touch with the employees. And that really works. It doesn't only work for an individual employee, it spreads the news across the organization that, the company is taking care of it, looking into it personally. So, you have to build such bridges where you get into such deals with the employees, whatever works for. So what works for Deepti may not work for Amit, and what works for Arijit may not work for Pooja. So, you need to be open for such things. The concept of cookie cutter is a matter of past. It has to be more diverse, more inclusive, rather, I would say. Rebuilding commitment, I think Deepti or Amit was saying building vulnerability. I think you need to create a very transparent environment. Basically, why you did what you did, and you should explain that very well to the employees. First, you need to understand, and then you need to explain to the employees. You need to align yourself with the bigger picture of the organization. So, mitigating explanation, which involves straightforward presentation of why you did what you did, and the justification approach, which legitimizes your actions by referencing an authoritative source. As I said, you need to have a very strong leadership, and leadership really needs to be strong, who is a decision maker. Otherwise, people will lose faith in the system. The leader needs to be empathetic, listen to employees, but also should take decisions. That's very critical for an organization. And the reframing approach, which also explains things could have got worse, but we did this to make it better. So, this creates a lot of transparency and participation amongst the employees, that we are all in this together, and we are all running behind something which is an unknown territory, and let's all get the solution together. And the third thing, which I call is the renewing capacity, is training people for the next generation, for the new world, giving them new skills, teaching them new skills, relooking at your processes, relooking at your technological investments, and getting rid of things which are not needed anymore going ahead, or redundant going ahead, and investing in things which are futuristic in nature. And doesn't mean cost cutting or reduction of headcount. Retrain people, reskill people, and also invest in people's networking skills, because that's where cross pollination of ideas happens. So broadly speaking, if the managers touch upon these 3 points, a lot of things will happen smoothly, I guess.
Those are absolutely wonderful examples and perspective, Arijit. I'm sure the viewers will really have solid takeaways to take from this session. Very, very nicely put up.
Just say one thing here to add to what Arijit is saying.
Yes.
Now, apart from what Arijit said, there is one element which I would also like to add is the larger senior leadership role modeling. So a lot of it, just the training, what we call it, it's not just about telling people what to do. It's also about how do they see their senior leadership behaving. If the CEO in the country management team meetings is being vulnerable, is listening, is speaking about it, and it's showing that kind of building that environment there, it starts percolating down. So that's very important element in this entire piece, that every training is not just by virtue of classrooms or by virtue of giving some kind of a knowledge to the person, but sometimes the role modeling by the senior leadership itself acts as a big training ground. And that's how even people who are not aligned to that culture gradually start assimilating in the culture, because they see the entire leadership behaving in a particular manner.
Interesting, very interesting. There are a few audience questions wherein they want to know more about insurance and how that can be used. But before we move to that, I just want to complete this segment of the discussion when we started with psychological safety and the building blocks and how to train managers. I just want to complete that and ask, what is the business impact of a psychological safe workplace? How does it make your business more robust, competitive, as well as how does it protect you during tumultuous times? We've seen the pandemic, we've kind of, passing to the great resignation. Plus, there are so many external impacts a business goes through. There can be a, sudden disruption because of technology, and you see your business has become redundant. So there can be so many, factors like that. So how does psychological safety make your business, overhaul these kind of situations? Deepti and Priyank, your thoughts. Let's start with Deepti and then we'll move to Priyank.
Yeah. So I think, Pooja, a lot of it, Amit spoke about Priyank, Arijit, and I think these are all sort of building blocks to your question, if you think about it, right? I mean, if you have a psychologically safe environment, and I'll take a few examples, right, from real life, what have happened specifically in the past couple of years. We went through the pandemic, right? So it had both the impacts. One, people were unwell, people had a lot of personal problems to take care of. In the parallel, we had our client commitments, right? We are in consulting, so it's a service-driven model, right? We had those timelines to meet, but you kind of need to take care of your people as well. So how do you sort of manage that situation? And I think one of the things which Deloitte did really beautifully was in Deloitte India, they made a company-wide announcement that there will be no layoffs, right? There would be absolutely no layoffs. We will push back on business. We will sort of say that, if something needs to be put aside, say for the next financial year, we'll do that. But we will not compromise on the health and well-being of our employees. And I think that just set the tone, to be very honest, right? It sort of made the employees feel that, look, this organization cares for me. This was a message which was reiterated in multiple forums, right? Right from the CEO to the service line leaders to the managers, right? To what I think Arijit was saying. it's important, and I think Amit as well, right? It's important for that role modeling to happen at each and every level, right? And what that did is that, one of the projects that I was working on, right, a huge project, one of the marquee projects, I still remember, right, 31st March 2021 was the deadline. We had people who had moved across to different places from the offices, but we still pulled it together, right? We had calls twice a day. We were about 50 people in that particular team. If people were unwell, other people covered up for them, right? So I think that sort of connectedness in the team was there. We all knew, right, at the end of the day, we were working towards a common goal. We knew that all of us are in it together, right from the partner to the director to the analyst on the team, right? Everyone was stretching, everyone was discussing about, what's happening with them, but we still had that one goal in mind. And I think that helped us sail through. On a different note, we also had to reimagine a lot of our offerings, right? Because everything was virtual now. Things that we used to do in person would not work anymore, right? So the fact that, it was a psychologically safe workplace, we invited ideas from all different kinds of people across sort of different backgrounds. And that also helped us think through really the customer lens. That what is it that the customer needs and how is it that we can start reimagining some of our offerings. So I think multiple examples, how just inviting views, just being open to listening to perspective, not just going with, a set way of doing things can help you sail through difficult times and also come up with solutions which can create that competitive edge at the end of the day.
Interesting. Priyank?
Yeah, I think as already spoken by Deepthi, Arijit, Amit, I would only echo sort of a similar thoughts that undoubtedly, I mean, success of any organization would actually depend upon how aligned are the colleagues or the the staff with respect to a common goal or an objective that the organization carries. Having a common belief system will only lead to a desired outcome, and in some way ensure a greater efficiency in the entire focus for the efficiency for the goals that we are all looking forward for. So hence creating an open culture, wherein the employees are allowed to share their views, opinions, all these things lead to building a very respectful culture, which definitely helps businesses, during all these difficult times. It's the employees' opinion ultimately that lead to innovation, right? And which cannot be driven until there is a strong organizational culture and support. So I recall, in one of my previous organizations, again into insurance, where I was working, this is way back almost a decade back. There was a forum called, I Speak, which normally was just, getting ideas from the last person in the team about, what do you feel about the market dynamics and changes that are important, and adopting those ideas through a forum, through a panel that was created, for all those platforms was something that was done very often. And I'm talking of a decade back when there was nothing called as a pandemic, and these aspects were not even spoken about. If I see into my current workspace echo, there are a lot of tech-driven innovations that we do within the organization, which are few things for our customers, few things for our internal employees, and everything is done with the support of business teams. Ideas and suggestions that are there. Which is because primarily every one of us has a mutual objective, and hence an open feedback culture or a forum is what is helping us. Leaders are open to feedback. They encourage employees across the organization to voice their opinions through forums like town halls, some business specific forums, some HR initiated campaigns, emails. And I think now with all of us moving back to office, we're expecting this to further evolve into a more robust shape, because anyway, it will be now more into our physical meeting and discussions that will be happening as of now.
Interesting. So we come to the section where we mostly talk about insurance and we'll talk about healthcare delivery. So these days, one of the biggest benefits of full-time employment is eligibility for employers' group health insurance plan. And as healthcare reform continues to evolve and affect individuals and families' lives and finances, group health coverage through an employer becomes an increasingly valuable perk. So Arijit, I'd like to ask you, how important is healthcare delivery to your overall employee experience and psychological safety agenda?
I think over years, this has been very important, and continuously the corporates have been challenging the healthcare organizations to come up with new options for their employees. And see, our employee when an employee is working for an organization, there's a lot of network or connectivity or roots attached to that employee. The employee has a home where they have got parents, their family members, and they are connected to their family members. So the more you connect with them, the more you make their life simpler and easier, the more it helps to get the employee engagement in office. So I think healthcare is very, very essential. What probably, I think we have come a long way really, because initially it used to be healthcare facilities only for the employee and the spouse. And now it has, most of the organizations have gone for, the extended family, your brothers, sisters, your in-laws, which has created a lot of good impact. Healthcare has also touched upon things like wellness. We are coming up with a lot of options. The only area I think, because we all know answers to these questions, the only area I think we have not explored yet is post-retirement. And I keep on asking my healthcare insurance person, can we do something for employees? The employees who have spent 10, 20 years in our organization, can we do something for them post-retirement? Is there anything that we can plan? So that is one area we haven't explored. And I really want to explore that zone, because I've worked in other countries. I've figured out the social security system in those countries are amazing, just amazing. And unfortunately, we don't have that in our country. We have in bits and pieces, but only for a particular class of employees or people. So that zone is unexplored zone, and I would request the insurance agencies to think about that and come up with some solution for us. And apart from that, I think a lot of people tend to put it as a part of CTC and all, but I still feel that it should be kept out of it, because it's something, it's a cost of doing business, and it's more of a responsibility for an employer to take care of the employees. And as I said, it's no more about physical well-being, it's also about mental well-being. So then the other area which I've been exploring for a long time is getting into the transgender zone, the LGBT zone. We are very well behind other countries, other regions in the world. And that is one area I'm exploring, what best we can do to help out our people to bring that more into the open. So this zone is a very sensitive zone and creates a lot of impact for an organization. I have seen employees leaving our organization, going to other organizations, saying that your benefits were world class. And we are proud of that. So net, I think it's essential and very important. It's probably the key thing right now.
So, you've left a lot of food for thought, post-retirement, keeping insurance out of CTC, and are they enough for transgender and, maybe specially abled or people with special needs? Maybe Priyank can comment on some of these later, but I'll just take Amit's perspective also on this. Amit, over to you.
So it's an important piece if you really look at it, the entire concept of healthcare delivery, because of the fact that today that is one area where individually employees don't do much about. The penetration of health insurance, health covers is still pretty low in India, and there's a larger dependency on the employers around it. And employers who are able to provide a good coverage, it's an added advantage still today, in terms of then compared to others. So if you really, from a large perspective, what can we do around it? Some of the points that Arijit also mentioned is that how can we really build the larger flexibility in this entire insurance piece? Because of the fact that it shouldn't happen that, we have a fixed set of a rule, okay, employee plus spouse plus 2 kids and that's it. Even though the fact that your spouse is already covered somewhere else, and then you are unnecessarily paying premium for it, and you would like to cover your parents along instead of your spouse. And so all that flex, or you are just single, but you are still not getting any benefit out of it. How can we really build the larger flexibility around who are the people who can be covered in the insurance? Who are the people who are giving that flexibility to the employees rather than defining it strictly? that creates an environment which is where people feel valued and feel safe, and they know that I am being treated as an individual. Otherwise, what starts to happen is that I am being treated in the same way as anybody else, though my needs are fundamentally very different. So from that standpoint, I think more and more organizations need to focus on that flexibility. And if you're able to provide that flexibility, uh, that will really help in creating a better and more, I would not even say safe, but also a more inclusive workplace from this perspective.
Priyank, coming to you, we've already had one audience question where somebody is asking that, how can you use insurance to enhance employee experience and retention and, psychological safety? Plus, I'd like to ask you is that today, we have digitalization. How is that helping you to create more customizable insurance plan where, employees can pick and choose what they would like to add, subtract? And what factors distinguish ACO as one of the better partners employers can look for their group insurances?
First of all, I think I'll start from where Mr. Arijit left, and thank you for giving that suggestion. In terms of the post-retirement plans, let us try and work something on this piece first. However, the second part that you said, so there are now modern age coverages, where same gender partners, transgenders, gender surgeries, all these are very common asks that we're getting. And I think there's a coverage available now for all of these across a lot of insurance companies. Yeah, but definitely, I'll try to break this question, Pooja, then into three parts: the employer, employee, and then what we are doing as an organization. So, undoubtedly, post-COVID, especially, employee health has become a part of the boardroom discussion, and hence insurance is one area which even directly delivers solutions towards it. So gone are the days when insurance details were purely bureaucratic, and employees barely understood the policy. Today, GMC is a very important aspect to drive the desired outcomes. While there can be many other aspects in the workplace environment which the employee without which it will be very difficult to close the entire loop. So, by bringing some sort of a world-class experience, the employees through the partners, whether it is insurance, hospitals, a lot of wellness aggregators, these all become pivotally very, very important to create a safer workplace. Now, if you look into the employee aspect of it, I mean, traditionally, insurance was seen as just a financial layer, supporting the employees at the time of, let's say, a medical need. But, obviously, the recent pandemic has changed the entire landscape in each employee's mindset also. So beyond the employer, even employee wants to look into what type of benefits is my employer providing me, or if they're changing a job, what type of benefits they will be giving me. And these are questions that typically we have seen people actually asking a lot of providers, a lot of organizations. So insurance definitely becomes by giving all these solutions and a lot of administrative and other process related conveniences becomes very important for them. Now, what are we doing in terms of making the things a little easier for the employees? Okay. So today, if you talk about an employee coverage, as you just mentioned about the flexible plans or plans where I can pick and choose certain benefits beyond my traditional coverage, which is known in the market these days as a flexible or a flexi option. Yeah, so there are a couple of not many, I would say, not couple, but there are not many programs that are now running in the market which are typically around these flexible coverages, where you choose what you want. So all requirements which are, let's say, multi-generational because of the diversity of people that are working in the organization, you can pick and choose what actually you want into the program. So an organization today gives a base program, and then there are add-ons like maternity, parents inclusion, different aspects that are to be covered, which I think technology is supporting through creating that cafeteria model for the employees, wherein they can pick and choose what they're seeing. So you give a tech platform to them, and give them certain directions on this is what you can choose, this is what you can remove. All these places is what tech is helping, and we are also working towards creating all these customized solutions for our customers. Secondly, by virtue of, assuming that, and probably last entire 2 years, and even part of the coming year, we assume that it will be a hybrid model. Many people would still not be going to the offices. So we need to be 100% sure that there is nothing which is a process-related obstacle that comes to these people, hence giving them certain administrative conveniences around paperless claims, keeping in mind, the hybrid model that people are working. These are going to help the employees on the process side of it, adding some teleconsultations, something around pharmacies and diagnostics leads to a better engagement and ensures that the health insurance policy that you are today buying is not just for those 10-15% people, but rather for a larger task force, larger workforce that is working with you, who's not reaching the IPD stage, but is benefiting out of the healthcare program that you have purchased. So here is where I think we are working towards a lot of solutions around these spaces, and giving our corporate certain solutions around a lot of flexible options and tech enabled delivery services. I would say that.
Thanks, Priyank, for that detailed explanation. I think the viewers will really benefit from that. So I'll just take a few audience questions here. Bhavisha is asking, work-related diseases and injuries strain health systems, reduce productivity, and can have a catastrophic impact on employees and then to organization. It is a wake-up call for all organizations. This reflects an increasing trend in this relatively new and psychosocial occupational risk factor. How does employer ensure these parameters are taken care of as part of the psychological safe workplace? Work-related health problems and, those kind of things. I think, Amit, maybe you could take this because, of all the leaders we have on board today, maybe there could be a little bit of risk in your organization, so as to say work-related, or no? I'm wrong there.
Not much of a risk, but if you really look at it, a manufacturing process has its own element of certain roles, jobs, which can be a bit hazardous than others. For example, if you're in a paint shop or if you're in a welding shop, if you're in a zone which is high noise, and those are the things which directly impact the health of the person who's actually working over there. The key piece is, as an organization, how much are you focusing on ensuring that you have the right PPEs, given to the employees. You have the right processes to ensure that all the protocols are followed, whether in terms of ear plugs or in terms of ensuring that they have the right shields. If you're somebody's there, if you are in a paint shop, are you really ensuring that all the there are enough protective equipment which the person is wearing, so that the fumes and all of the paint are really not getting impacting the health of the person. So I think from a manufacturing standpoint, these things are being taken care of well, and traditionally through various provisions also through the Factories Act and all. The concern I'll highlight where it happens, and this will be true across the industry, is the white collar jobs. The roles which are there in offices, the postures, the chairs, the table, we have the standard table, standard chair, and then it creates problems of spondylitis. It creates problem of slip disc, backaches. All of that starts to happen. Now that's where organizations need to be much more mindful about it. And again, there, like what we have done is we have put the height adjustable tables across our offices, so that depending upon how tall or short you are, you can adjust the height of your table and ensure that the screen is right in front of you, rather than you have to really look up or look down and strain your neck, or in terms of what kind of chairs we are having, or the regular eye checkups if you are doing, because ultimately in office you are really spending a lot of time in front of the laptop or the computer screen. So the larger issue, which I would say organizations are not really much doing, and this is where the opportunity is the office environment. Factories traditionally have been good in terms of ensuring that all the safety measures have been taken, and it's also as it mandated by law. So all good organizations follow those practices. That's where the real action lies in the organizations which are able to focus on the white collared well-being around ergonomics, around those kind of occupational hazards which are there sitting on the table. We have one place where we have also put a kind of a pedal cycle below the chair, so you can below the table. So as you are sitting, you can keep on paddling and exercising. Are you able to? How much you can do that? So though it's still a pilot, we have done it in a small office, but we're really looking at really expanding it. Now, those are the things we need to continue to focus on. And this is where the law will not say anything. Organizations themselves need to take that, those calls and ensure that we are providing that healthy work environment from this standpoint.
Those are wonderful perspective, Amit. Thanks for sharing that. Really interesting, when you talk about those pedal chairs. Lovely. Deepti, your thoughts, some of the best practices you've done at Deloitte for healthcare delivery?
No, I love the fact that Amit called out some of these issues which typically you don't even think about, right? When you're sitting on the chair or you're just on the flight most of the time traveling, it really takes a toll. And, we've had people who are like 24, 25 years old dealing with issues around spondylosis, backache, which is not a very healthy thing to do. I think there are two parts to it. One is obviously everything that the organization can do in terms of tangible steps. But I think healthcare and this awareness is also a mindset issue. Not everyone is so aware that, these are small little things which can cause issues later on, right? If you're like really young, maybe a backache, you'll pop a pill and you'll be okay about it. But long term, what effect is it going to have on your health? So I think two things which we've been doing, right? One is we've been doing a lot of these awareness sessions, whether it's getting doctors, whether it's getting nutritionists, yoga practitioners, meditation. We're doing a lot of these like online sessions so that people become aware of the fact that these are important facets of health to focus on. And the other thing, and especially what we did during the pandemic, right? Everyone was working from home. So there was a certain amount of sort of money which was given to across all the practitioners, right? We gave about 20,000 that invest in getting like a chair, or if you need an external keyboard, right? Or if you just need that little stand to get your laptop elevated. So I think those were small little steps that we took to ensure that your health or, your just basic health is not compromised on, and that awareness starts getting to be built. Yeah, I mean, those are, and we don't really have any of those physical health hazards, which
Yes.
about, given that we're in consulting. But yes, very, very legit point made by Amit over there.
Yeah. I'll take another audience question. And here, Neelam is asking, can health insurance also be extended during sabbatical period of the employees? What if the employee is covered into ESIC but not in Mediclaim? And to that, I would also like to add that, do employers also have insurance policies for their contract employees, for the gig workers? This had really come in the forefront recently with the one of the startups. One of the employee had a road accident, and that time there was a lot of awareness around covering your extended workforce also with these kind of benefits. Priyank, you like to take that?
Yeah, to answer Neelam on her question, I think passing on health insurance benefits to a particular employee, during a sabbatical. So I think insurance can be given to any employee till the time he or she is a part of the organization on rolls of the company. So nothing stops them to have an insurance benefit. So that, I think, should answer the question on the first part. On the ESIC and non-ESIC part, I think that's completely depends on the organization. So an ESIC employee can always take a medical policy. There is no mandate which says that if you are covered under ESIC, you are not meant to have a regular insurance. That can always be done, I think, but it depends on the individual organization's policies of, how are they taking care of their employees. Some would prefer to have separate programs, some would still prefer to have a Mediclaim program. So that's completely dependent on that. There is no such mandate which says that you can't be enrolled into a Mediclaim if you are a part of an ESIC. Then I think, Pooja, answering your other question on the gig economy, which you just mentioned, that that's something that we've been also doing something. I think till few years back, if you see, insurance was generally extended to the full-time or the permanent employees. However, with a lot of these new age companies, if I could say, let's say Amazon, Flipkart, Zomato, Swiggy, we've seen a massive influx of gig workers in the mainstream business. And they are I would say the core set of people who are actually ensuring the end-to-end delivery of the business model that these companies are operating into. Hence, I think that's precisely the reason why insurance has become the need of the hour for them. Along with these sectors, I think COVID-19 or the pandemic has again led to the emergence of a hybrid model, and gig workers are now viewed somewhere equal to the payroll employees, at least in terms of the healthcare benefits. That's what I would say. So we've seen employers structuring the employee benefit policies of all such models, wherein there are advantages that they can actually take, around, let's say, hospital cash, some EMI waivers, some, I would say, more customized programs that can be created for them. If you look into the factors that have ensured the rethinking of the entire benefit design for the HRM, hence, I would say the insurance approaches also change for these people. However, if you are asking in terms of a comparison of the programs between the two, there is still a separate set of coverages or program that we are seeing for the permanent as well as the gig staff. So if into a single corporate, for a permanent staff, the coverages are still more lucrative, to be very honest. And I think coverages are still more basic when it comes to the gig workers. But I think it's a matter of time that people will start, comparing the benefits, and somewhere they will be upgraded into the benefit structure over here also. So that's about it. So largely there are accident-only policies, or let's say accident-only hospitalization policies, or only OPD programs, which are generally created for the gig workers, whereas the permanent staff is getting a full-fledged insurance program. So that's the little difference that we are still observing. But yeah, from an insurance penetration point of view, there is a sea change that we have seen in the last, at least I think 5 years, I would say, wherein the gig economy is considered as a very, very important factor for designing the entire insurance.
Very interesting. And, this also helps us to segue to the next point is when you say that the insurance coverage for gig workers could be basic, and for permanent employees, it could be really more holistic or comprehensive. So how does insurance as a tool help us to win the talent war? Because it's a reality that, if there is a talent war that is going on and you're competing with your peers to get the best talent, as skills become in short supply and as, gap increases with respect to skills. So how does insurance and healthcare benefits help to win the talent war? Arijit, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with what Priyank said. I think this gig workers insurance coverage is an evolving field. It's not there yet. And some organizations are there, some organizations have started thinking about it. But one interesting thing is that if you read the new labor codes, which are supposed to be implemented in the near future, it talks about how to cover the platform employees as well as the gig employees under insurance coverage. So which is very interesting. So there's a recognition that they need to be covered. And I strongly feel if the same work is going to be done by contractual employees and the gig workers, then they should be covered under the same insurance, because I think otherwise it's discriminatory in nature. So I'm completely in favor of that. And going back to your question on, just repeat the question once again, if you don't mind.
How does it help to win the talent war? Yeah. Does it give you an edge to win the talent war?
Exactly. So this actually takes me to an interesting point which we were discussing yesterday on HR analytics, and how to deal with it is that, we tend to make this mistake that we have the standard 4 or 5 ways of insuring people: medical insurance, accident insurance, life insurance. But everybody doesn't need that. A person who is in his 20s look forward to something else, 30s look at something else, 40s look at something else, 50 plus looks at something else. So first you need to understand which segment wants that. I've worked in organizations where they've got rid of certain insurance policies and paid cash to the employees. particularly in the 20 years, 30 years age bracket. So a prescription will not work. So you need to find out what are they looking for, what are the priorities at certain age group. And that's where, a lot of data you need to understand. You need to understand where are the maximum clicks that are happening, what are they trying to find out. So it is very important. It's a game changer, I would say. And a lot of companies use that to woo a lot of people. A lot of companies put it as a part of CTC, showing that, we pay extra amount for life insurance, which I completely don't agree to it. So it is definitely a game changer. But I strongly feel when you're designing an insurance policy, please keep in mind what is needed by the people at different stages in life to help them. So it brings me back to Amit's point where you spoke about the basket approach. You have different things, you pick and choose whatever you want. It's administratively, it's a nightmarish thing, but I think that helps. And understanding the needs, and plus, as I said, it creates a safety net for the employees as well as the immediate family members. So it's all linked, I guess. It's very important, no doubt about it.
Yes. With that note, we'll close this session today. I'm conscious of time. Viewers, you've been very engaging and interactive. I hope a lot of ground was covered and you're walking with great takeaways. Amit, Arijit, Deepti, and Priyank, you all were wonderful. You shared great points. Thank you. Thank you for starting this day of yours by giving to the community. Really appreciative of that. Thank you so much.